This is CBC Here and Now.
Attacked while asleep. That's what happened to a long-term care resident in Botwood. It left her with injuries and her son with demands for changes to the system.
I was very shocked, saddened, heartbroken, if you will, that, my mom would be beaten like this.
That's coming up.
Inshore crab harvesters from Bonavista Bay to St. Mary's Bay say their livelihoods are under threat, and today they vented their frustrations to politicians and their union leaders. That story coming up.
It's like a 13 days of party and gathering all the time.
The local Iranian community is celebrating the first day of spring, a traditional holiday called Nowruz that marks the beginning of a new year in Iran. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan, filling in for Carolyn Stokes this week. We begin with a troubling story. An 82-year-old woman with advanced dementia attacked by a fellow resident of the long-term care centre in Botwood. A beating that left her with severe bruising, a broken wrist, and a family that's shaken. Now her son wants changes. Here Now's Henrika Wilhelm has the story, but first a word of warning. Some of the pictures you're about to see are graphic and maybe distressing.
This is Patricia Pinsent in better days. Far different following an incident 3 weeks ago. Bruises to neck, face and right arm, a broken wrist. Attacked by another resident. Patricia Pinsent was asleep when it happened.
I was very shocked, saddened, heartbroken, if you will, that, my mom would be beaten like this.
The family does not want to blame individuals, but instead wants changes to the long-term care system to better protect residents.
We're not mad. We just want change in the system. The system obviously failed, and we need to find out exactly what we can put into place to prevent that system from failing again.
While his mother has been moved to a different room and is checked on more often, Pinsent doesn't think that addresses the bigger picture. One factor he thinks plays a role: staff shortages.
People are overworked, they're stressed, things can happen, things get overlooked or missed at times, I understand that, but we have to make sure that these elderly residents, especially in their final days, are not subject to this kind of beating.
There are times that, we do struggle with staffing and it's very regrettable. And, we take every measure, to keep our residents safe and secure. And our staff work, very hard to provide the care for the clients in our facilities.
While PAC won't comment on Patricia Pinsent's case, she wants to assure residents and their families any attacks inside long-term care facilities are taken seriously.
We do a thorough assessment and investigation of that incident. And we put in place, some planning to mitigate the risk very quickly. And, if there's lessons learned, then we definitely would put a plan in place to implement any recommendations.
A full review of long-term care homes was announced by the provincial government in early February. That review will, among other issues, include a look at staffing numbers and at residents' quality of life. Henrika Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
Good evening, I'm Heather Gillis and I'm filling in for Ashley Brawell over the next week. And it is the first day of spring starting this evening at 6:54 p.m., but it sure does not feel like it today. We have had a lot of weather going on. We've got blizzard conditions for coastal Labrador tonight, wind and blowing snow along much of the west coast with impassable roads, according to the RCMP. And they have been on the Burgeo Highway, along with parts of the west coast and up into the northern peninsula. But tomorrow does look a little bit better. Let's take a look at some of the watches and warnings. We've got a wind warning for the northern Avalon Peninsula up into Bonavista, much of the north coast of the island. And then when we come down the back of the northern peninsula and into the west coast, blowing snow, those blizzard conditions here along coastal Labrador, and then a snowfall warning into Happy Valley Goose Bay. We will tell you about all of that weather a little later in the show.
Thanks, Heather. Now to Nova Scotia, where there's shock and concern following a stabbing at a high school near Halifax this morning. 3 people are being treated in hospital.
It was there were 2 staff injured as well as the individual, the student.
The regional school board official says the incident happened around 9:30 this morning in the office at a high school in Bedford, about 20 minutes from downtown Halifax. The suspect, who we understand is the student that she mentioned there, is in police custody. No word yet on the student's condition or how the 2 staff members are doing. The building was locked down and then closed for the remainder of the day. Well, back in this province, new details are emerging about a homicide in St. John's. 82-year-old Millie Brake was pronounced dead just over 2 years ago. CBC News has obtained court documents that identify the person who police believe is her killer. Here now's Ariana Kelland has that story.
It's 2014 and Brandon Tobin has pleaded guilty to a violent crime. Behind him is his grandmother, Millie Brake. Tobin was living with Brake here in Mitchell Court last year when paramedics were called to the house before 11 o'clock at night. Brake was pronounced dead at the scene. These court documents show the police arrested her grandson for homicide the very next day. No criminal charges were laid. Tobin was taken to hospital for medical treatment, though court filings don't specify why. That treatment included taking blood samples. Police got a warrant soon after to seize those 4 vials of blood. A search of Millie Brake's home turned up red staining on door frames, on walls and stairs, all swabbed for DNA. Police also found drugs and a gun. The RNC filed this court application because of the time it's taking for evidence to be processed here at the RCMP's crime lab, specifically those 4 vials of Tobin's blood. The RNC wrote this. To date, the RCMP lab has had these exhibits for 322 days, and RNC has yet to receive the results of the analysis of the blood. And it doesn't appear it will be finished anytime soon, at least another 6 months, due to a forensic lab backlog. The RCMP says it can't comment on any specific investigation or request for forensic lab services. But in general terms, the Mounties say turnaround times can vary, depending on the type of analysis required, demand, and capacity. Tobin has not yet been charged with his grandmother's death, but the police don't have to worry about finding him. He's currently serving a federal sentence in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, for drugs and weapons found during the search of Brake's home. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
One person is in critical condition following a weekend shooting in Torbay. It happened Saturday night, shortly before midnight. One man is in custody. He's being charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, and other crimes involving weapons. There are no details about what led up to the shooting. Police will only say their investigation is continuing. While another person is dead following a crash, this one involving an all-terrain vehicle. On Saturday evening, a 24-year-old man from the Burin Peninsula was on an ATV that went off a trail in the community of Fox Cove, and it went over a steep embankment. Police were alerted to the accident by a local resident who came upon the scene. The RCMP say alcohol and drugs are not considered to be a factor in this death, but their investigation is ongoing. While the uncertainty surrounding this year's crab harvest took an angry turn today. Inshore fishermen are upset by quota allocations, worried they'll earn less this year. They vented their frustration at the union and federal politicians. Here now's Terry Roberts was there.
It was supposed to be day 1 of collective bargaining, settling on a price to be paid to harvesters for their landings of snow crab, with the start of the season only weeks away. But this was the scene this morning at a St. John's hotel. Roughly 100 inshore fishermen from what's known as Area 3L, the NAFO fishing division that stretches from Bonavista Bay on the northeast coast to St. Mary's Bay on the southern Avalon. The area is home to more than 500 inshore enterprises. They say they're being driven out of business.
I had £42,000 of crab to catch 5 years ago. I'm down to 15.
They interrupted this meeting involving the top ranks of their union because they're angry.
If we don't get nothing done here today, don't you show up here tomorrow trying to negotiate crab prices. I'm not guarantee that.
Federal Fisheries is taking a precautionary approach to the crab harvest, one that is designed to protect the stocks. Part of that process involves creating 2 separate crab biomasses in 3L, one for the inshore, another for the offshore. Inshore harvesters say this leaves them with less to catch.
But these guys are at 30% of their original quotas, and they need an increase. They're catching their quotas in one single day.
These harvesters just want one biomass, a greater share of what they say is a healthy resource. They rallied today to demand more support from their union, calling for a pause in price negotiations until they can get access to more of the resource. After some words of support from their president.
If we got to go to Ottawa on this, we will select people and go to Ottawa.
They came here, the office of MP Seamus O'Regan, their representative in the federal cabinet.
Okay, I'm with the FFAW. Any chance we getting on the phone, or?
I don't think so.
No.
But O'Regan is in Ottawa, leaving fishermen to vent some more while phone calls were made.
We can't afford to turn the propellers anymore. You see the price of fuel and everything going, but no one's blind, boys.
Finally, some progress. A meeting by teleconference with O'Regan later tonight.
But as Greg says, he's top of the house, right? Here, you know what I mean? And I think he got a chance to make some positive impact, so.
Enough to cool things off for now, but harvesters say their protests will resume if their concerns are not addressed. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
More dolphins have died in the province. It happened on the weekend along the shores of Carbonear and near Bristol's Hope in Conception Bay North. Rescuers tried to help the dolphins of the mammals after the sea ice forced them into shore and they couldn't get back to open water. There was a similar situation in Heart's Delight earlier last week. In that case, close to a dozen dolphins were rescued.
There was fisheries officers there and a lot of local people from both Carbonear and surrounding communities. When they discovered that these animals were on the beach, forced in by a pack ice, dolphins haven't got any time. Once they go ashore, they trash themselves about on the rocks and also the ice. They've had a huge amount of effort trying to get up through this ice, and they can't raise their bodies up. They can only poke their heads up, and they beat themselves up doing that. So people were in progress with sleds and tarps, and then trying to get them to open water. And there was 30 odd that died down in Carbonear. We didn't even know there was that many there. But then when the ice cleared away, a lot of them had died. We just didn't see them. The ice had covered them over, and they had died quicker. So then when the ice went out there, they were there.
To the west coast of the island now, and another sign of the strain in the province's healthcare system. 4 psychiatrists left Western Health last year, and that's had an impact on patients in the region. Here now's Rafsan Farouk Yugal has the details.
In late 2019, after someone called the mental health service line for help on Jordan Stringer's behalf, a crisis team was at his doorstep at a moment's notice. That moment helped save his life.
So yeah, I'm very, very grateful for the crisis response team. I'm still grateful for that unknown person, whoever called.
Stringer was soon able to see a psychiatrist who helped him navigate through his mental health struggles. He had nothing but praise for the help he received. But that psychiatrist left the province last year, and so did 3 others from the Western Health region, and wait times went up.
I lost my psychiatrist, actually. I think the last time I saw them was January of 2022, so it's been over a year.
These numbers obtained through access to information tell the story. Wait times for outpatient psychiatry services within Western Health are on the rise. In 2021, the median wait times for care jumped from 36 days at the start of the year to 66 days heading into Christmas. The following year, 2022, the median wait times doubled again to 131 days over the summer and stayed over 100 days heading into the fall.
But we feel confident that patients will certainly be seen within reasonable time.
Western Health says the numbers have ticked down slightly to 78 days, and they're working on filling psychiatrist positions.
And we feel confident that Western Health and the Western region brings lots of opportunity for individuals and families to work in this region. And with our new hospital opening within the next year, we certainly feel confident that recruitment will be successful.
Every week, Christy Allen has demonstrated publicly drawing attention to the need for better mental health supports in the province. She found the Western Health numbers alarming.
Wait times are number one because people, it's so hard for them to get in and even speak to someone.
Last month, this letter from Western Health raised even more alarm bells about the inability to provide follow-up psychiatry appointments. It even advised clients without a family physician to look at private care options within the community.
That letter was given out, I assume, because we have a shortage of psychiatrists and we don't have enough mental health services. So it felt like it was putting that blame onto the patient, making them feel like maybe they're not as sick as they think and that there is enough. It was so harmful.
Western Health certainly apologizes for the memo that was provided to clients. The intent of that memo was certainly to be transparent with our clients with regards to our services.
And as for the solution, Western Health says it is implementing a shared care model where psychiatry would work with primary healthcare providers and other healthcare professionals to reduce wait times. In the meanwhile, Jordan Springer says he's fortunate to have access to a family doctor and a psychologist, but he fears that he won't be able to see a psychiatrist anytime soon. Rafsan Farouk Jugo, CBC News, St. John's.
People are celebrating the arrival of spring today, but for the Iranian community, it's also the first day of a new year. In Iran, the celebrations traditionally last for almost 2 weeks. Here now's Mark Quinn spoke with the owner of a Persian restaurant in St. John's about how they're marking the beginning of the holiday season.
Today is our New Year's Eve. We call it Nowruz, and we have a small celebration at our restaurant for Iranian community to join us and celebrate the New Year's together. So we usually have a table. We call it half scene. So it's basically it's a table that we put 7 specific objects on the table, and each of which is a representative or a symbol of something. For example, we put garlic on our table, so it's a symbol of health. So we put sumac on the table. It's a symbol of sunrise. We put grass or sprouting, so it's a symbol of rebirth and growth and vitality. So we keep our table for 13 days because the holiday of Nowruz is going to last 13 days. For us Iranian, it's really odd to have a winter this long. So but we're happy. We're happy that the New Year's is here.
It appeared that the increase was largely in the Labrador Sea portion of Davis Strait and was related to the very rapid increase in the number of harp seals.
A polar bear expert explains why so many people along the coast are looking out their windows and seeing those large furry animals roaming the streets. That's just ahead.
And in the weather forecast, it has been a very, very windy day across much of the province. We'll bring you those values and how windy it will continue to be in the overnight. That's ahead.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Bonus prize deadline is midnight, Thursday, April 6th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
It's amazing the difference even a day or two makes. On Friday, you were out on that icebreaker, making your way through the ice in the St. John's Harbor. Saturday morning, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get a nice picture of the ice. I think I saw the last 3 pieces of ice
gone,
floating their way right out of the harbor there.
And you know what? It's amazing what a few hours difference makes as well, because when we got on the ship, the Louis S. St. Laurent, there was tons of ice in the harbor, even, you know, a couple of hours out and back, and there was a lot less ice in the harbor. So.
And it's all thanks to those winds, which are really howling today.
That's right. Yeah. You know what they say about the weather here. Wait a couple minutes and it'll change. Yep. And there is a lot of weather on the go here today. So let's get right into our current temperatures for the island right now. If we go back, it is freezing for much of the island, 0 and below, the warm spots in Cape Race and St. Lawrence on the island. And it's about 2 to 3 degrees on the east coast of the island, dropping down to cool as -5 in Corner Brook, and similar temperatures -10 in Churchill Falls. But when we add the wind chill temperatures in there, it is a lot chillier, feeling like -12, -11, as cool as -14 in Port aux Basques. And that's because it has been a very windy day across much of the province. Gusts to 96 in St. John's, 104 in Bonavista, 117 down along the south coast, and 96 in Port aux Basques, and almost 100 in Stephenville. Environment Canada tells me we have had gusts of wind above 70 kilometers per hour across the island. A little less windy in Labrador with your wind gusts into the 60s, but these wind gusts, they are going to continue into the overnight. You can see them here till about the early morning tomorrow. They're going to start to move off. And what's causing all of this wind is a low pressure system that is sitting here off Cartwright, Mary's Harbor, and that's swirling. And when that moves off, it'll take a lot of that wind with it. And you can see that it is bringing much snow up here into Labrador, where they're having blizzard-like conditions for coastal Labrador. And we've had a really snowy, messy day on the roads in the northern peninsula, parts of the west coast where the RCMP asked people not to travel on the roads, and a messy day heading down towards Burgeo as well, if you were on any of our province's highways today. Now, tonight for St. John's, it is going to be a windy night. We're going to have flurries for much of the island. Wind gusts 80 to 100 for St. John's and into Bonavista. But once we get into Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor, much of the south coast, your winds will back off a little, 50 to 80 kilometer gusts for you folks. But as we get down to Port aux Basques, we're going to get some snow, some blowing snow, picking up probably about 2 centimeters there, and more, 2 to 4 into Corner Brook, up to 5 to 10 maybe into the Gross Mourne area, and some more snow up here into the St. Anthony area, and some wind up here as well. And that snow is going to continue for much of Labrador tonight, where we will be picking up some more snow, anywhere between 10 to 20 for Cartwright and into Makovic. And here in Happy Valley Goose Bay, we have this photo courtesy of Amanda Budgell. They picked up about 31 centimeters of snow from Saturday in the overnight into yesterday and this morning. And Amanda had to brush her car off with a broom because she said there was so much. And in Makovic, about 34 centimeters, according to our friends at Environment Canada. You can see that snow there along parts of higher terrain into the northern peninsula and into coastal Labrador. Now taking a look at tomorrow, it'll be cloudy tomorrow. We will have a chance of flurries for much of the island. Those flurries continuing into central, peaking sun from behind the clouds for much of the south coast. And you can see as we get into the west coast, we will have some blowing snow and flurries tomorrow. but that should all start to clear up by noon as that low pressure system moves away from the island. We'll have some snow rain mix into St. Anthony, some snow into Mary's Harbor, and we'll pick up a few more centimeters of snow into Labrador with temperatures around -11 for Makkovik and Churchill Falls and -7 for Nain. Now we will take a look at your long-term forecast over the next few days a little later in the show.
They've become a much more common sight this winter. Fluffy white polar bears have shown up on the Northern Peninsula, Fogo Island, and Bonavista. So what's happening? Well, Ian Sterling is an expert on polar bears. He teaches at the University of Alberta, and he's a research scientist emeritus with Environment and Climate Change Canada. He joins us from Edmonton. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, glad to do it.
So let's talk about the sort of basics. How do these bears end up showing up in these communities in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, they're feeding in the ice that's offshore, but a little bit of background might be helpful. Back in about the late 1970s, early 1980s, the population was approximately estimated to be about 1,200 animals in Davis Strait and the Labrador Sea. And by the early 2000s, that number had roughly doubled. The portion of the population that had increased the most was off of the Labrador Sea, and it was growing more quickly than Davis Strait, southeastern Baffin, probably because of the very rapid increase in the size of the harp seal population. So we had a little over a couple thousand animals at that time. The ice has been offshore and very dispersed, and then the strong winds have suddenly blown what is out there up against the shore for the last few weeks. And so whatever bears were there have been pushed in along the coastline. And when the ice is really compressed like that, it's very hard to hunt because there's not very many breathing holes. The seals don't like it, and they don't have really high densities in close. So when the bears aren't getting too much, or the seals are not as abundant, they go on to the shore, which is where they would normally go, and then they'd migrate north for the open water season. But this year, there's probably a lot more of them been pushed in. And the subadult animals, subadult males in particular, come and go and check on alternate food sources anywhere that smells nice, like around a settlement.
So how much of a danger are these hungry bears who are on the lookout for food?
Potentially, they're quite dangerous. By and large, polar bears will avoid people, but a hungry bear, particularly a starving subadult, can be quite dangerous. So you definitely want to avoid them and keep away from them when they're just out, or if they come into the village or come into around your house or settlement.
What are some of the things people could be or should be doing in order to make it less attractive for the bears to show up where they live?
Well, the main thing is to keep alternate food sources, garbage in particular, or remains of carcasses of animals that have been taken in other kinds of hunting. Cover them up, lock them up, try to remove them as an attractant, because bears have a phenomenal sense of smell. So they're going to smell that sort of thing from miles away.
And from your experience, you know, a lot of people are attracted to the bears because they are such magnificent creatures. What's the best way to try and get a glimpse without putting yourself into danger?
Well, if you're in a place that where you can drive cars around, looking from the cab of a half-ton or another kind of a vehicle like that is okay. Or if you're right by your house or a place that you can take refuge in, and you're watching bears that are 50 or 100 meters away, you have time to move. But by and large, it's a good idea to just really keep your distance and use some binoculars.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us and sharing some of your insights today.
Oh, you're welcome anytime.
First games ever.
You set a record.
Yeah. Pretty exciting.
Well, exciting is an understatement. The Labrador Winter Games are now over, but there was plenty of exciting action on the weekend to wrap things up. We'll take you there. That's coming up next. Well, it was a record-breaking end of the week for the Olympics of the North, also known as the Labrador Winter Games. Friday marked night 2 of the Northern Games, one of its most popular and physically taxing nights of competition. The events are traditional skill-building games practiced in Inuit communities during the long, dark winter. It tests strength, agility, flexibility, and overall endurance. And the entire stadium was on its feet as spectators cheered on the athletes. Have a look.
On your mark, get set, go!
Nico Dyson-Brown beat the seal crawl. He had 12.29. Previously, he beat his record. He had 12.1. Nico Brown from Cartwright beat his record.
What event did you just compete in?
I just finished the seal crawl for the Northern Games.
If someone hasn't seen that before, what does that look like?
You pretty much got to try and imitate a seal crawling across the ice. You cross your feet over and you crawl on your hands. Technique, just remember to breathe and go as fast as you can. Train hard.
Abby Hanrahan Miller managed to just do something amazing. What did you just do?
I kicked 7'2" and broke the record.
How do you actually prepare to do something like that?
I just practiced jumping a lot at the gym, and I stretched a lot so that my leg was flexible enough to actually hit the seal.
Overall in the Northern Games, what makes these kinds of events special in the whole Labrador Winter Games?
The environment mostly. The amount of amazing people that I've met during this experience is worth more than any of the wins that I've gotten. So. And
is it true that this is actually your first game?
Yeah. First games ever.
And you set a record.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting.
How did you feel coming into the competition?
Pretty good. I knew I could do pretty good, but I didn't think I'd come first. I thought there was a lot better people.
So I think you actually have something there, right?
Yes,
you hold that up?
I got to cut it down.
So you've been kicking the thing all night. You kicked higher than anybody else, then you get to cut it and keep it.
Yeah. Pretty good feeling. Pretty good feeling.
Everybody's still cheering for you, even the people who are being eliminated are still cheering for the people who are still left in the competition.
Yes, yeah, and that's what we like to see. That's an important part of the games, is the camaraderie and the sportsmanship. So that's probably overall the most important thing. Winning a medal coming first is great for like your individual self, but overall I think everybody's here to cheer everybody else on. So.
While dog sled racing is one of the last events of the Labrador Winter Games, there was a fresh dusting of snow on Saturday morning, just in time for the pups, and the new kid in town who took first place. Take a look.
I just watched my son take the gold medal in the Labrador Winter Games.
And how does that feel?
Oh, it was a wonderful feeling. It was good to see. It's a different side of the race than I'm used to. I'm usually the one on the comedy. And I think this is 37 years that I've been running dogs. But we're taking little chains. Taylor seems like he's a bit interested, so it's time for him now to help you too and get some experience out of his belt. Yeah, it's my first Winter Games in dog race.
You set the bar pretty high.
Yeah, I guess so.
The golden winner this morning in the dog team race is Taylor Russell in Bandit from Charlottetown.
No, it's pretty much all I do when winter's on is run dogs. I was like that on trail, and races don't really bother me, but I did want to win too. Yeah.
What a great finish to that race. I want to talk a little bit about some of the entertainment that comes with the Labrador Winter Games, because there was plenty of applause when Ptarmageddon walked on stage at the Labrador Winter Games. The quartet that's based in Labrador City played the opening ceremonies for the games. On the Go host Anthony Germain caught up with the band with the punny name. Take a look.
There's a place where we can go. You can follow me through the snow to a place where we don't know what's underneath.
So Ptarmageddon is just back from a tour on the island. Here they are back in their home part of the province here in Labrador, Happy Valley Goose Bay, although you're not from this town.
No, we're based out of Wabush, actually.
How'd you come up with the name?
It was just, we were making a bunch of jokes at a party and somebody threw it out there. We were making as many Labrador puns as we could, and Ptarmageddon just sort of rang out and we all died laughing for about 15 minutes and then locked eyes and said, wait, is this actually the one? Are we going to do this?
How did you finally, we're going to be Ptarmageddon?
How did we decide to be Ptarmageddon?
Yeah.
We just couldn't stop laughing at the name, and we actually thought it was really fitting because we started during the pandemic, and ptarmigans are all over the place when we're out and about in Labrador, so it just kind of fit.
Because when I hear the name of your band, I'm kind of thinking that we should turn into like monster truck kind of English? Like it should be Ptarmageddon.
Well, that's kind of a part of the joke, is that we're really not that. We're really not like a hard metal band. Like, we're pretty silly, so it's kind of ironic.
It's like a friend of mine back at CBC suggested a metal folk band in Newfoundland and Labrador should be called Bloody What's His Name. So if Ptarmageddon doesn't work out, you got that. What does it feel like being here playing at the Winter Games?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, I've grown up in Labrador, so I've been into lots of sporting events. This is actually the first time I've been here, and it looks like it's quite a big event. So yeah, it's great. It's a big stage for us and big sound, and we're happy to be here.
That's the 40th anniversary of the games. How about you? How do you feel? It's obviously going to have a very friendly audience here. You're back in Labrador.
Yeah, it's great. When we were out in Newfoundland, we actually had a friendly crowd too. They received it well, and yeah, but it's good to be home to play a big stage like this. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. For a lot of people who are watching who aren't from this province, they may not understand how big the Labrador Games are in Labrador. Why are these games so big?
Matt, I think that's a good question for you. You've been
involved. Well, I mean, it's an Indigenous games as well as Labrador Games. So it's all the winter sports that we play here up in Labrador, and yeah, it's grown, I guess, over the years. Like I said, I've never actually participated myself, but I've been an athlete here in Labrador my whole life. So it's just a big gathering of all of the different places from Labrador and playing the sports and stuff. So yeah, it's huge.
There's also some very interesting games too, right? Like a Labrathon where people are like sawing a log, chipping a hole through the ice, making a fire, and it's not that easy, but it's kind of unique to this place.
These guys were explaining to me the owl hop. I'd never heard of this before.
Right.
The hopping on one leg. That's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Please explain.
Well, I guess you hop like this on one leg, like that's the, and then you just, it's like it's like an endurance contest. I don't know. That's.
I think you guys have some sort of bird obsession.
I think we do.
We really do. It's true.
So listen, what's next for the band? You went to Stephenville, Corner Brook, the West Coast. You may notice there's a certain place on the island they missed. When are you going to come to St. John's?
We're in the works of writing and recording a third record. We might be out in St. John's. While we're recording that, we'll bring the show out there as soon as we can.
All right, well listen, Ptarmageddon, a pleasure to meet you. I know you've got another song coming up. All the best, have a great games.
Thank you so much.
So many different cultures that are represented today, but I really wish that they can go home with a little piece of something.
Nowruz is the site of the annual Sharing Our Cultures event. We'll give you a glimpse of what it's all about. That's coming up next. Welcome back to Here and Now. The sounds of drums and African music, as well as colorful displays, filled the rooms yesterday. The 23rd annual Sharing Our Cultures began at the province's main museum in St. John's and is going to continue until Wednesday. This year is the biggest ever for the event. Take a look.
Today, this province is home to diverse populations of Indigenous and other people.
This year we've got the largest group ever. We have about 125 students with about 33 cultural displays, and we were able to bring students from Labrador. So we have some students from Shehehi, Happy Valley Goose Bay, Northwest River, and on Tuesday we're going to be having some students from Conn River coming. So it's really great to be able to have an opportunity to bring together Indigenous youth and newcomer youth and local youth together so they can learn about each other's histories and cultures and build positive relationships.
My name is Emily Marshall. I'm the project manager for Sharing Our Culture, so I'm kind of one who oversees the whole program. So I start making presentation in high school in the St. John's area to try to recruit some students who might be interested to share something about their culture. And so after that, I follow up with them going in school during lunchtime or bringing them all together during workshops so they can work on their project, on their painting, and all of that. So really it's a process starting at the beginning of the school year to have the result that we have here today for this event. That's so much to learn, so many different cultures that are represented today, but I really wish that they can go home with a little piece of something, that they're gonna remember something, but also that being here among all of those students coming from so many different countries, to be like, wow, this is the kind of world that we want to see outside of these walls. That everybody, no matter your color, no matter your origin or your religion, like we can be one beside the other and it works well together because we respect each other.
We want to take you back to a story that we told you about a little bit earlier in the show. A Nova Scotia high school became the site of a police investigation after 3 people were stabbed there this morning. A student at the high school in the Halifax area is in custody. The incident happened just hours after classes resumed following the March break. The CBC's Blair Rhodes has the story.
Definitely nothing I'd be expecting.
Exactly.
Spring break, I'd feel
March
like
break,
the first day would be better.
After spending about 2 hours in lockdown, students came trickling out of the high school, trying to figure out what had happened.
I never would have seen him like that. It's kind of bizarre to think somebody I went to school with last year, he had those intentions.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
It's really wild to think about that. This could have been one of us or something else. It could have been really worse.
Definitely.
Before the students were released, anxious parents patrolled the sidewalk.
I've been here standing outside for 45 minutes and I came from Lakeside. I worked all night. I just got off at 8 o'clock this morning. I want my kids back and they will not be coming back to the school.
By early afternoon, more pieces of the puzzle were emerging.
There was a concern with the student. The student was in the office at the time that the incident took place. It was all very, very quick and very immediate. So as soon as it was realized that there was a violent incident taking place, there was an announcement made, which is hold and secure, which means that the students are to stay in place in their classrooms.
Police were on the scene 10 minutes after they got the call.
We have one youth in custody who is a student at the school, and there is no threat to public safety.
The youth was arrested in the field in front of the school. The wounded were rushed to hospital by ambulance. The school closed before noon and police were on scene for much of the day. Lindsay Bunin says when school reopens, there will be supports in place for students and staff. She says it's too soon to say whether there will be any changes to school security. Blair Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, Chinese leader Xi Jinping is in Russia today, where he met with his counterpart, Vladimir Putin. The visit is a show of close economic ties and strategic partnership between the two allies, but Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine overshadows the 3-day trip. The two leaders are looking to send a message of defiance to Western leaders. Beijing also wants the oil and gas from an energy-rich Russia. In turn, an increasingly isolated Moscow needs to find powerful friends as it deals with crippling Western sanctions. A A panel of top scientists say the window to avert the worst effects of global warming is quickly closing. The UN chief was more blunt today when he called the climate a ticking time bomb that's just ticking away.
Humanity is on thin ice, and that ice is melting fast. This report is a clarion call to massively fast-track climate efforts by every country and every sector and on every time frame. In short, our world needs climate action on all fronts, everything, everywhere, all at once.
The report from the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change offers hope, but also a warning. It said the planet is a mere decade away from reaching the earlier goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Experts see that critical threshold as a tipping point after which risks from a warming Earth begin to pile on. The report called on world leaders to dramatically pick up the pace of weaning away from fossil fuel use. It also highlighted the threat global warming poses to human health. Well, Heather, in the last few minutes, something special happened.
It is spring, officially.
According to the calendar, But not according to that forecast you've been giving us.
No, not if you look out the window. It is not. It's not feeling like spring. It's seasonal for this time of year for us, but you know, don't break out the shorts or the sandals or anything quite yet.
So no spring-like forecast, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately not, unless the winds change again, which they could over the next week. Let's take a look here at spring. Here we go. Turning the dial to spring at 6:54. So just about 2 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, it became spring. Our days are as long as our nights now, and as we head towards the summer solstice, they're just going to get longer and longer. Spring is all about hope. Now, speaking of hope, let's look into Tuesday evening. We'll see a lot of that snow move away from the island, and we'll have a pretty decent day. Pretty decent Tuesday with some sun and some cloud, but a little bit of flurries in some parts of the island, like here through Bonavista and into Central. Decent day along the south coast of the island. As we get into the west coast as well, we could pick up a few flurries, and pretty decent seasonal temperatures for much of the province on Wednesday. Looking like a mix of sun and cloud for much of the island as we head into Thursday towards the end of the week. And our look ahead, temperatures for the island between 0, 1, 2 degrees, so not bad, still pretty mild. We could get some flurries for St. John's, into Bonavista, in through Central, but it looks like down along the south coast and into the west coast, we could have a mix of sun and cloud. Same thing in Labrador, as cool as -7 in Nain, but around the 0 degree mark, 1 degree for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Taking a look at our long-term forecast now, we do have seasonal temperatures for St. John's and the East Coast in the daytime. And again, seasonal lows between -1 and -8 degrees overnight throughout the rest of this week. Tuesday, Wednesday looking pretty good. A 40% chance of flurries on Thursday, some snow on Friday, and a few flurries on Saturday. As we get into Central, it looks like we're again gonna have some seasonal temperatures, possible flurries on Tuesday, mix of sun and cloud on Wednesday, some snow and flurries through the remainder of your week there. Things looking pretty similar for the West Coast, except it looks like your nice day will be on Thursday. As we head into Labrador, it looks like you're going to have some snow or some flurries for the western part of Labrador on Tuesday and Wednesday, and some flurries possible Friday and into the weekend. Tuesday and Wednesday in eastern Labrador, it looks like you could have some snow or some flurries accumulating. Thursday looking like a nice day. Friday, Saturday looks like you could pick up some snow again. And here you go. This is our viewer photo. I have called this one Sun, Snow, and Sea. And the sea looks positively tropical, but I'm sure it doesn't feel like that. And if you have any photos, you can send them to us here below on Facebook or at nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Well, there you go. Thanks so much, Heather. And thank you for watching. That's it for us. Have a great night.
Good night.